Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for sending in questions for me to answer. My name is Aristotle, and I will be talking about the theory of rhetoric. A little bit of information about me. I was born in 384 BC, so a couple of years ago, and I am a Greek philosopher, and I was studying under another philosopher named Plato. The first question is, when was rhetoric created and why? Rhetoric itself was created in 5th century BC in Syracuse, Sicily. Public speaking was important in terms of higher education as Greece's victory over Persians led to a shift from a mythological view of the world to one that is centered on man and our intellect. I wrote The Art of Rhetoric, a collection of lecture notes, during the 4th century BC. I did this because I lived at a time of great conflict. The Persian Wars brought imperialism to Greece and changed us from a society of small city-states to districts competing for power. We had to deal with conflict, both internal and external, and everyone, including myself, became sick of war. I thought about how to reduce war and conflict and achieve peace through education and legislation. And in order to achieve that peace, we had to discuss with one another and have educational conversations. In order to push forward truth, we can use rhetoric as a tool to get others to listen to us. The second question that was sent in was, can you explain more on why it is so important to use rhetoric? I believe that through study and education, individuals can come to a deeper understanding of what is needed to be noble. But if we don't possess the ability to get others to listen to us, then how do we spread needed information onto others? And it is also the democratic responsibility of the citizens of Greece to know how to speak in public as well as know how to protect themselves and their reputations against defamation or dishonest individuals. I, along with my teacher Plato, have watched speakers use their skills of rhetoric without care for truth. And although I disagree with their actions, I think it is others' responsibility to use rhetoric as a way to pull a vulnerable audience away from misinformation. The truth is an important virtue, and rhetoric can be used to engage with people's reason and emotion in order to reach that truth. The other question that's been asked is, can you give us a description of what rhetoric actually is? And I define rhetoric as an ability, in each particular case, to see the available means of persuasion. Through use of ethos, logos, and pathos, speakers can have an effective presentation. I believe that it can be a tool used to achieve a noble end. It is the intentional act of using words to have an effect. After all, words have power. And to elaborate on that, ethos is the speaker's character. This is characterized by the speaker's intelligence, virtue, and goodwill. The speaker's character will be revealed through their message and presentation. The audience has to accept you before they accept what you have to say. Pathos appeals to the audience's emotions. You can appeal to their positive or negative emotions as a speaker. After all, emotions have the power to modify our judgment. It's a call to action. This can be achieved through using meaningful language or pauses. An example right there. This is the most effective in the introduction when it is necessary to grab the audience's attention. Logos is logic, which is trying to convince your audience through reason. This can be done through use of surveys, data, or citing others as a reliable source. Examples of this would be historical evidence or logical arguments. With this, it is important to pick facts that align with your message that you are trying to convey to your audience. In order to be an effective persuader, you have to find a way to use all three of these things to make your audience listen to you and set up your credibility. And these can all be used in the three branches of rhetoric. Now, what are the three branches of rhetoric? The three branches of rhetoric are forensic, epidectic, and deliberative. Forensic usually happens in environments like a courtroom. Its purpose is to either accuse or defend someone or something. The importance here, the highlighted part here, is justice. This one focuses on the past, for example, what someone did or said, and questions the justifiability of that action. In Greece, a citizen is expected to be their own advocate in front of a judge or jury, and because some ordinary citizens don't have extensive knowledge of laws, having the skills to defend themselves or prosecute someone else was important. Epidectic, an easier word for this would be ceremonial, is used to praise or blame an individual for their actions. This one focuses on the present. A common example of this would be a graduation speech. This is important because it reinforces public values. To praise or shame someone or something's values is a societal indication for others to act or to not act in that way. This situation presents a virtue or lack thereof, and then we show someone as an example. And lastly, deliberative rhetoric focuses on the future. This is mainly seen in political speeches, where the speaker talks about the future and tries to persuade or dissuade the audience. If you don't vote for me, or if you vote for someone else, then this will happen. Even some cases of advertising uses deliberative rhetoric. If you don't buy this product, then this will happen. In a lighter note, this can also be used in proposals. If you marry me, our life would be like this, or I can provide you with a life like this. Another question that was sent in was, how can someone be good at using rhetoric? And the 5 canons of rhetoric is a good way to understand how to be effective at communication. And what are the 5 canons of rhetoric? The 5 canons of rhetoric are invention, arrangement, style, memory, and delivery. Invention is the beginning of communication, the process of coming up with what you want to say and finding the key messages that you will use that will convince your audience. Arrangement is when you structure what you are going to say. In this organizational stage, it is important that you take into consideration who your audience is and what structure will work best for them, as well as what will leave the best impact. Style is selecting interesting and appropriate language. Like I said in the beginning, words have power. And no matter how well you structure your speech, if the words do not leave an impact, then it doesn't have the power of persuasion. In this section, the use of pathos is key. Then there's memory. This is rehearsing your speech with the purpose of mastering the content. This is important when you have a long and extensive speech ahead. And all these things boil down to delivery. Delivery involves using the 3 branches of rhetoric and the other 4 canons of rhetoric with a combination of voice, for example, volume of voice, and body language like hand gestures or good posture, which is what I need to be taking consideration of right now. How can all of this be applied in real life? In society, misinformation is rampant, and people, whether you're aware of it or not, sometimes use rhetoric as a way to spread their message and misinformation onto others. In order to combat that, in your community, rhetoric is a good tool to have to get people to listen to the truth. Here is a modern example. With the pandemic, there were a lot of misinformation going around, which led to a rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans. These people believed they're responsible for the virus and deserved punishment. And through negative use of rhetoric, they spread that belief onto others, causing innocent people to get hurt. But those who know the truth, that Asian Americans are not virus-carrying individuals, also use rhetoric as a way to try and stop these crimes from happening. Scholars use their credibility, ethos, to show that there is no correlation of virus spreading and Asian Americans carrying them. They used reasoning, logos, and their data to try and combat misinformation and provide reliable facts and evidence and sources to the public. And they appealed to people's emotion, pathos, showing the injustice and harm being done to these people and appealing to people's ability to sympathize with others in order to push for a change in action. Another example would be political speeches. In multiple instances throughout your history, a politician's impact can be traced down to their ability to speak in public, both good and bad people. From Martin Luther King Jr. to Adolf Hitler, through use of rhetoric, you can either inspire a country to push for equality, or you can enrage a country to the point of committing horrendous acts of violence to others. And the last question that was sent in was, what do you say to those who criticize the use of rhetoric? My teacher, Plato, thought that rhetoric was irrational and manipulative. Although there are three key elements in rhetoric, ethos, logos, and pathos, he condensed it to pathos only. He believed that the use of emotion is like flattery, a trick used for a passive audience. Plato favored honest logic and a straightforward message and disregarded appealing to the audience's emotion. And although I agree that the truth is important, the means to get others to believe in the truth is important as well. And some people just do not get swayed by simple facts. That is the truth of human nature. I believe rhetoric, when used unjustly, can lead to pandering and trickery, like Plato said. It can lead to trickery, especially when the reader disregards the importance of the truth. But if used justly, it can be used to help spread the truth. The goal of rhetoric is to demonstrate the truth, to tell truth in a way that will get the audience to listen, therefore leaving a significant and influential impact to society. Thank you.